Hi, I'm Francesco Garipoli. I'm here with Dr. Len Saputo, and we're going to discuss something very interesting that a lot of people like to understand. What is energy healing? What is energy medicine? And we've got so many ideas about medicine as it is, but energy medicine, it's a very curious topic.
We've kind of thrown it out, and what we're doing is we're bringing it back. Energy is what makes everything work, and why we get freaked out because it's biochemistry or it's some kind of electromagnetic energy or if it's some kind of light energy is beyond me. We should be open to any avenue that tells us something about what we can do to help people feel better.
Exactly, because historically, this is what we did as a tribe, as a society. There was always the medicine man or the shaman, that person who had that understanding or a lineage that they carried to bring healing to the community. And how did they do that before the technologies of medicine we have now? It was from spirit, it was from the natural world, it was from the animal spirits and the energy around them.
It was the relationship of the healer to the person.
Exactly.
There are two people interrelating, and what made the big difference is that relationship. It's not the drug so much, whether it be a plant or it be some kind of form of contact. It was really the relationship, and that's still the case today, but we've lost that. And now we're trying to get back to having more options. And if we look at all the possibilities we have for healing, we're going to do a lot better than if we just stick with what we've got today, because let's face it, have we solved the problem of chronic diseases? Nobody has.
Not really. And I think sometimes in ancient times they must have had it better off than we did. I mean, they'd go to the medicine woman or the sage. They'd go to the shaman. And granted, I mean, we understand human psychology was always what it was. And you probably went there because you were sick or you were at a challenge and you wanted them to help you. But from what I understand, from so many shamans and Aboriginal healers and people I talked to, they would turn it right around and put it back on you. And say, well, let's look at, maybe there's some energy around you, or maybe there's some, evil energy, or whatever it was, but it was energy, energy, energy. And you had to say, okay, yeah, maybe I did do this. Maybe I am in a situation where I take responsibility for this. Maybe my digestion is off, or I have this pain because of something that I can now affect.
Right. I think the body tells us, it's like a messenger. It tells us that something's gone wrong at the psychospiritual level. We're not in congruency with who we are. And if we go back to thinking that way a little bit more, I think it'll take us more into the energy realm, into the idea of the relationship between the healer and the person who's being healed.
Exactly.
It'll take us to a place where we begin to understand a little bit more about why we got sick in the first place rather than just suppress the symptom.
And that is so empowering. And in China, what I learned living in China is that the masters would say, well, we have a liver problem. They wouldn't say, something's wrong with your liver, let's go to your liver, let's cut it up, let's put medicine into it. That wouldn't be the first step.
That's the symptom.
That's the symptom. The first thing was liver. They had a great model, and they still work with it very nicely in traditional Chinese medicine. Liver had to do with anger. So there was an emotional component, an energetic, emotional component to that. So now the person who had anger issues wasn't told, you have anger issues. Right. They were told, the liver's out of balance. We all know as a common group think that liver and anger go together. I can now deal with the liver, and I can deal with the anger, and mind, body, emotion, physical, spiritual healing start taking place.
Well, we let the body tell us what's going on. I often say, in my own philosophical way of looking at things, that the physical disease is the body's way, or the somatic expression of psychospiritual dysfunction. And people don't all agree with that, but I really do.
How could you disagree?
Well, I mean, even when a tsetse fly bites a baby and you go, whoa, how can you make logic out of that? And my answer is, I have faith in Mother Nature. I have faith in the universe.
What brought that event together?
There was a reason. Yeah. Maybe as a human being I'll never understand. But that faith, that spiritual connection is huge.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean we always have to take blame for everything either. It's simply to say, okay, I'm in a flow. Whatever happened, I broke my leg, I had tsetse fly bit me, I've got a stomach ache, I'm in a flow, I'm not a victim. It's not the symptom that is the issue, it's the relationship with that symptom.
Yeah.
And what the shaman did in ancient times, what the energy healers do now is say, let's talk about that relationship.
Exactly.
And instead of saying, something's wrong with me, fix it, it's saying, I'm in a flow, this is my experience now, what can I do? And what we can do really well, probably more than anything, is affect subtle energy.
Exactly. There's a big difference between curing something and healing something. We get all
Exactly.
mixed up. And the tendency for us is to want to make the symptom go away. So we'll use the herb, or we'll use the penicillin, or we'll use some kind of drug, or some kind of technology, and not think twice about the fact that there's a meaning, always a meaning for why a symptom is there. And if we go deeper and we look at the underlying reasons for why that happens, then you're doing something that's a lot different. And when we start looking at taking responsibility, working from the inside out rather than the outside in, is really a lot of what Qigong is about.
Yeah, and having gratitude around these things, because as soon as you create that dualistic separation with this thing, I have a problem and I've got to fix that problem, all of a sudden there's a farther and farther distance that we've created. And Qigong, if it does anything, is it says, I see everything as part of one energetic flow.
Exactly.
And I can affect this energy. Every thought I have, every bit of food I eat, everything I do, every action I take is part of that energetic field.
I love the idea about taking responsibility for it yourself, and that there's a reason for why it happened. And then to learn from that, because we're all unique, and we're here because we're adding something that no one else could ever bring forth. Think of yourself, Francesco. Who could ever live your life again? It could never happen that way. So you're
It'd be
unique.
way too complicated for anybody to try to do.
And you're indispensable. And I love the idea of gratitude. You know, when you're sick, gratitude, people go, what? Why would you be grateful for being sick? The answer's simple. It's because you're learning and having new opportunities to try and find a way to deal with what's happening in your life in a way that is more functional for yourself and for the universe.
And it's really common sense. I mean, we can go way out
really
there, and
is.
the common sense is, if I don't have gratitude around something, I'm keeping it away from me, right? Every time I say thank you, I've brought it in. I brought in a relationship, an interactive relationship with that thing, thought, place, person. Until I have gratitude, it's not in my field of influence. And the beauty of gratitude is it brings me into presence. It brings that thing, that pain, that dis-ease into my field of energy. And the Chinese call that the Wei Qi field. And in that Wei Qi field, now I start to influence. And don't we influence your attitude? I mean, as a physician, you know, I mean, you see a patient come in, and don't you say right off the bat, I see what's led up to this
You know,
problem.
I've experienced it myself. And I have to say, you're one of my best teachers. It was you that was saying one day, thank you, universe, for the opportunity of going through this experience where I've suffered, because it's made me wiser and it's taught me about how to deal with it. And I had a near-death experience just a few months ago.
This was a complicated.
And for me, that was a huge thing, because I always thought, I can handle any kind of thing that happens to me, and if nature wants to take me, I'm ready now. But when the experience actually happened, and I was suffering, and things weren't going right, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be dead.
Right. You were in the hospital, and they didn't know what to do at some places.
No clue.
Yes.
And I had to work things out myself. And when it came time to have a meeting with what I look at as God, the answer was, okay, if I need to go now, it really is okay. But God, I have more things to do. I think I can contribute more to what's happening to the universe. And there are people who will miss me, and I'll be sad for that. So it's up to you. I'm willing. And I'm really proud to be able to say that I was in that place and I meant it, and it really was okay. And then voila, something miraculous happens, and here I am.
But you always trusted, because we stayed in communication through this process. You trusted that there was more than the physical. I remember the doctors kept saying to you, well, it's this, and don't worry about it, it's just an infection. Or this, and you were trusting the energetic component, because we forget that emotion is energy, and we forget that intuition is energy, right? Energy isn't just this woo-woo admitted thing that we can't see. Energy is everything. Every physical thing is energy, including our thoughts.
Oh yes.
And our feelings.
Oh yes. Oh
and
yes.
You kept being. I remember during that process telling me how you kept feeling something wasn't right, and you kept going with that until all of a sudden, what happened?
Yeah. The revelation is I had to fire my doctors, and I was without a doctor for a while, managing my own affairs. And it was scary in a lot of ways, but I was thinking, they're not right in what they're doing. There's something missing here. And I had a deep trust that I would be led through this process one way or the other, but I was going to follow my intuition. Science is wonderful, and when you got objective data, beautiful. Go ahead and go with that. When you don't, as we don't have nearly always, we think we do, but we don't, then you're making assumptions that can get you in deep pucky.
Yeah.
And so to be able to look at the affective, intuitive, emotional, spiritual aspect of what's going on is a really important thing.
And this is so important for people to remember, because I think many times we've gotten so disempowered by a medical system.
Yes.
And bless it, it's a great medical system.
It does wondrous things. You never throw it out.
No, but there's a place where it can be disempowering for a person, where they don't feel like they know enough, or they give their power away to someone else to tell them, even though their gut is telling them, like they did for you.
Yeah.
You're a physician, so you have a little bit more
Even
clout.
then it was tough.
And people still weren't listening to
And
you.
they're telling me, look, you're acting like a VIP. Why don't you act like every other patient and let us do our business?
But your gut was telling you, the energy was showing that healing is a pathway, it's a process. It's not something's broken, you fix it, you move on.
Exactly.
There's something in there. There's something in that process that guides us through maybe building confidence, maybe
Exactly.
changing our mind about something, about maybe
Yes.
letting go of some thought or
Yes.
feeling. And in the ancient times, people were always asked to think that, connect with the spirit around
Yes,
you, listen
yes,
to
yes.
your guidance, listen to your, in Hawaiian we have the amakua, try to connect with that energy around us,
Yes, indeed.
that guiding energy.
The
that's
chi.
Right. All of a sudden, we find a time now where maybe that medical model has reached such a place of the all-knowing technology that we're starting to go back to a place where the power comes back inside us.
Well, I think that's right.
And do you see that? Do you see that with patients? Maybe people talking a little more about alternative, complementary ways to heal?
People that come to see me have been to 20 other practitioners. I mean, it's like the last chance garage. And they want something where I will listen and care and give them respect, to help them to be empowered and to use any modality that might be something that'll make them feel better. And I look at the curing part of it always because that's why they're there. And do what I can to assist with the pain and with the discomfort of what's gone wrong, but always thinking there's a deeper reason for why this is presented. And thank you for the opportunity to allow me to enter into your relationship with that and maybe educate you a bit. That for me is the essence of being a healer, as opposed to being a trained mechanic who looks at the codes and says, this is what you do for that condition, you got 10 things you do. That's not the art of medicine. And when you look at how much science is in medicine, if you want to try and claim to be scientific, I was shocked when I saw the numbers. About 15% of what we do in medicine is based on solid science, according to the Office of Technology Assessment, and a couple of major articles in the New England Journal and British Medical Journal. And of our research, 1% is good science. That, to me, is absolutely stunning.
And I love this information because it's right in front of all of us to say,
Yes.
it's time for us to come back to a place where we can trust that this is our body that we've been blessed with, and whatever is out of harmony in it is our blessing, our opportunity.
Yes.
And energy healing is really about coming back to that place to say, this is a journey. I'm the integral dreamer in this dream.
Exactly.
And that I have to trust. I have to stop being a victim. I have to stop that victimization habit and say, maybe I have to reduce my stress. Maybe I have to get out of that job. Maybe that relationship doesn't serve me anymore. Maybe eating 2 hamburgers a day isn't the best thing for me.
Sure.
These are nutrition and psychosocial things,
Yes.
but they're energy. Energy healing
It's all energy.
It starts with that relationship we have with everything around us.
I don't know of any more powerful medicine than energy medicine. It starts with a thought. What you think is one of the most powerful things that determines how you're going to be. It affects your biochemistry and your physiology and how you're going to be. So going back and having faith, powerful stuff. And we get tested by our faith in Mother Nature every single day.
Every second.
And if we just go with it, as I did when I had my illness, it's just a wondrous thing. It's such a confidence builder to see how things are synchronized and how life, I've been taken care of my whole life.
But you got pushed to a limit.
Well, I think it does that.
And
it's part of the learning.
And what is that limit? The limit's all the holdings, all the belief systems that we have, all the maybe that false trust we put in somebody else.
Yes, indeed.
And there's a point we reach that edge where we finally have to say, wow, thank you for showing me that edge of my trust.
Indeed.
And then all of a
Indeed.
sudden, in that release, what happens? This amazing information like you came through, and you discovered something that went against what the doctor said.
Exactly.
And the result was you're healing and you're not in pain anymore. It's fantastic.
Well, I find it remarkable at how science and spirituality have gone on separate paths. You know, a couple hundred years ago when the apple fell on Newton's head and we thought we were scientists and we're going to do everything that was science, and if we didn't understand it, we'll relegate spirit back to the church, which is what happened.
And it was the church that supported Newton and these people.
Well, indeed. And so now we've come back to a place where our science and our spirituality, because of the quantum nature of how we look at things, is becoming one thing. And I look at science and spirituality as being on a spectrum, Francesco.
That's beautiful.
One on one side, one on the other, but they're in the same spectrum. And as we understand more about how the universe works, we know everything is in one spectrum. And we're part of all that.
Is that the unified field
That
concept
is
in
the
general?
Absolutely.
What was Einstein working towards? Remember, that would tortured him the most. The man who said E equals mc squared, energy and mass, physical stuff, are interchangeable, and one feeds the other and creates the other. There is no other. It's one unified field. He couldn't explain it mathematically. I won't go into maybe my theories about it, but essentially, until we see that everything is energy.
Exactly.
Everything is energy. And if you read any of the quantum physics papers, my God, you take some of that information away and rearrange the words, and you think you're reading some kind of a guru's statement.
Well, you can.
Because spirituality and science are now coming together in our lifetime.
They've always been together. It's just our distorted view that says, oh no, they're separate because I don't understand it. What does a human being understand, actually, in the big picture of things? If we were to surrender and to have confidence that Mother Nature is in charge of this, she's giving us the opportunity to be on our voyage through life, to discover things and be challenged and develop new wisdom, because I think what we do is we are adding to the collective consciousness of the universe. That's our purpose here. And we're absolutely indispensable.
We are the
We can
collective
never,
consciousness.
ever provide the information that will come from our experience again. That can never happen again. So it's our one chance. Let's do it right.
It's so beautiful.
It's about faith.
Yeah, it's about faith. It's about understanding that we have so much more influence over this world than we think. And so many times we get caught up in these ideas that there's a problem with the government and the church is wrong and there's a problem here and this guy is wrong and this person. And we find ourselves so subtly falling into the victim mentality. And there's a place where we just have to stop the madness and say, if everything is energy, and I'm a conscious entity here in a process of knowing myself as consciousness, awaken a dream, whatever words we want to use, all of a sudden we start to understand that if I change this, I change this.
Change everything.
If I open up this heart energy, I'm going to resonate with other people. And no matter how frustrating I might be with that relationship with my office workers or people I meet or strangers or my lover, whatever, I bring that vibration up to a place where I have to every second keep saying thank you and trust until you set the resonant energy in your field.
You're talking about evolution, evolving to a higher level of consciousness. Where we get away from this narcissistic stuff that it's all about me. And as we do that and we begin to give into that we're part of a family and a community and we have a country and we have a world and we have a universe, the integral way I look at it as a doctor is I want to see how every person's life story fits into what their illness is and how that fits into the bigger picture of things. So integral is a huge word here that leads me to have a lot of confidence that I'm on the right track to look at the bigger picture because we are all one.
Yeah, so important. And to not throw out Western medicine.
No,
and not to
it's
just
brilliant
dive into one extreme of energy healers.
Right.
There's a place for everything because everything is in this unified field.
Exactly.
And if I can say, even if I have to go to a doctor, even if I'm at a point where I'm at a late stage in my dis-ease, it doesn't mean I throw away the energy part.
No.
But what I've seen so wonderfully in the Qigong world is people who have cancer, people who have diabetes, people who are in really late stage, tough challenges, really bringing up their Qigong work, really bringing up the energy healing aspect of their life. And now Doctors are surprised they only need half the medication.
Yeah.
Doctors
or maybe
are,
not need it.
or they go off, and all of a sudden the doctor says, you know, you don't need to take this one. You only take these 2 or 3.
Right.
All of a sudden, healing that used to take 2 or 3 weeks, maybe they've done in 1 week or 5 days. So what we're seeing is the timeline getting tighter and tighter as we come into our power as energy workers.
Exactly.
And everybody is an energy worker.
No question. We need to look at how we can go beyond the boundaries of our discipline to be open to new things. Because let's face it, no discipline has solved the crisis we have in healthcare where 50% of us have a chronic disease.
Exactly.
So maybe it makes sense to be integrative, so we'll be able to work together. I remember when I was starting the Health Medicine Forum back in 1994, the reason I started is I thought, you know, as a doctor, I haven't solved a whole lot of things that should be solved. And my medicines and technologies may be wonderful in some settings, but they sure aren't in others. And so I met with Chinese medicine people and Ayurvedic practitioners and people who are psychologists and philosophers, etc., etc. And the next thing you know is we're looking at, well, how could we transcend the boundaries, the limits of what our own discipline shows? And are we willing to go ahead and actually go against some of them to be able to open up to understand what somebody else is doing in their discipline? It's beautiful stuff, and it makes us all stronger. It's a kind of an integral approach to healthcare. It's like a village.
Exactly.
Everybody's doing something to support.
It takes a village to raise a baby. It takes a village to heal.
It's a village to do everything.
You know, and that's the village within us too.
Exactly.
We contain a village inside us of thoughts and belief systems and influences that brought us to who we are, and everyone is valid. Every aspect is valid. So many people say, oh, I have to get rid of this left brain thinking.
Yeah.
No, you don't get rid of anything. Or I have to be more. No, you don't have to. You just have to accept. That's what the gratitude's about, this deep acceptance that I am exactly where I need to be. And for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. Throw away the past. Come to this present. Forget about the future. Come into this moment. And there's an unfolding that is so beautiful. And then all of a sudden, that's the metanoia. That moment, somebody comes to us, or we get a phone call, or you meet the right person.
Serendipity.
Yeah, and I believe we cultivate coincidence. And energy healing is about trusting that everything is energy, and in so doing, we open up to our infinite resources.
That's so right. When I look at the universe, I think of its reflexive nature.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is you can put on your tunnel vision, and you can go on your little path, whether it be science or spirituality or whatever your particular bend is, and it will accommodate all kinds of information that allows you to say, I'm right. And of course you are in that narrow sense. But there's another guy 180 degrees around who's saying, I'm right too. And of course, that person's right as well. And what we need to do is look at the integral nature of how that all fits together. And that requires tolerance and humility. Two big words.
Yeah.
And if we can be in that path and be open and receptive and move into a place where we're loving and sharing and giving, all of a sudden there's an evolution rather than a revolution, which is what's happened throughout time up to this point. We've had revolution after revolution because we don't like the way things are, but then unless we evolve, it will only recur again.
Exactly.
So we've got to find a way to evolve to a higher level of consciousness if we want to solve the problems we're facing today. It's Einstein's theory again.
I'm tired of revolving
I
and
am
going
too.
around. And I think as a human race, we watch this play out over and over again and repeat these non-growth oriented patterns.
Non-loving,
Yeah.
narcissistic,
And it really
competitive.
seems like, we can say, well, that's just the way the world is. But I think really when it comes down to it, there are practical steps a person can take. To understand energy healing
That's good.
isn't something way out there. I think if we first can say that big step, everything is energy, and I have some influence over everything. Now I've got to take a look at food as energy. I've got to take up thoughts as energy.
Absolutely.
I've got to take a look at action or exercise as energy.
Even sleep.
Sleep as energy. All of a sudden, if I start looking at my life not as things in separate compartments, but one contiguous flow of
Beautiful,
energy,
beautiful.
all of a sudden you say, okay, I can do that. Maybe I can't do anything too grand. I can take these little steps.
But at least notice it.
And notice it. And in these little steps of waking up from the sleep of saying, I've externally referenced my world and I've listened to all these things and they haven't worked for me.
Yeah.
There's only one other place to go.
Yeah.
is listen to that shaman inside you,
Yeah.
that energy medicine healer inside each of us,
Mhm.
and start bringing our confidence back.
We tend to forget about being authentic. And being authentic isn't just about being honest about what you think. It's about opening up in ways that we're not accustomed, so that we're being real, and we share our emotions and our thinking with other people exactly as it feels.
Yeah.
There's so many people that have been uh, abused as kids, physically, sexually, emotionally, spiritually.
Suppressed, just abuse.
Yeah.
Suppression is an abuse where people haven't feel like they haven't been able to say what they wanted to say.
Exactly.
Whether
It's the shy kid in the first grade.
Right.
You know, it's just that stands up around and afraid to talk. I worry a lot about those kids.
So creating a world for yourself. You can't change the world out there.
Right.
You bring it back in and say, this is my dream. This is my world. What things can I do? Where are the things, everybody knows, where are the things where the energy is stagnant or blocked? And then do something. Everybody knows. You don't have to find techniques. I mean, there's great people who inspire us, but
Sure.
energy healing starts with your own self-confidence about saying one thing, pick one thing in your life that feels blocked. If it's about health and healing, find one part of you. Maybe it's a weight loss thing you want to work on. Maybe
Sure.
it's not having enough energy.
Right.
Pick one practical thing, and then start working with that from the inside out and saying, if I really listen deeply, what can I do to make that change? I promise you, I've met too many thousands of people in all the workshops I give around the world. Everyone I've ever met, after maybe a few stutters and saying that they don't know, we'll come up with that smile that says, you know what, I think I need to stretch more. You know,
Yeah.
I need to stop eating white rice and
Sure.
bleached flour. That's the first step. And then they start to see things. Well, maybe I need to take 5 minutes a day just to stop, close my eyes and breathe
And
and
notice.
reorient my energy.
Indeed.
Okay, good. And then you watch incrementally that person who didn't know what to do start having this system that they've created themselves. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we have to take more responsibility for the stuff that's inside and get in touch with it. And it's our fears that hold us in check.
Yeah.
And if we have the courage to notice what's happening on a regular basis that's holding us in that place, we eventually may get the idea that I could do this differently. And if I do, I'll get a different result. And maybe I'll put my toe in the water and see how it feels.
Sure.
It's the fear that holds us in check. When we get past the fear and we're humble as we do that, magic starts to happen because you learn new things and you find out where your power is, and it comes from the inside out. It's not dictated by the people on the outside that are judging you. I always say be careful about people who judge you, because there's nothing like being judged by a fool and having that affect you from the outside in.
Sure.
Dangerous
Be
stuff.
careful of people who think they know everything and people say they have an answer. This is the second thing I run away from. But,
Indeed.
you know, I think when we do one great thing I've learned in the spiritual path of energy healing is this ability for us to just stop. Just stop.
Be present.
If you can't solve your problems or anything, we can all just have the courage to stop some action, some thought process, some emotional response trigger, and just stop.
Yeah.
And that is maybe one of the highest levels of evolution that we have. Because when you stop and you open up that space, and that's why breathing is so useful, come up into a real conscious breath, stop, close your eyes, whatever it takes to just stop. And in the world that seemed like a roller coaster going by, you stop and give it the space and watch what kind of energy healing happens. It's amazing. And we all know we can do this. So I think people just need the courage to stop.
That's some of it. You know, you
Yeah.
notice what you're doing in a regular way, and you start to act a little bit differently because you don't want the same result to happen.
Right.
And it's that reflective state.
Exactly.
It's the meditation. It's getting in touch with your own energy. It's about saying, who am I really? And accepting that it's okay. And when you're in that place, lots of things change. All the pressures that drive you to do things that are kind of neurotic, that don't serve you well, maybe those are things you can actually get in touch with.
Yeah. I think one of the big things I see with people is the energy around words, the words that we use. You know, we hear so much about intention, and the power of words. Masaru Emoto's work in Japan with
yes,
even
with
writing
water.
a word on a glass of water,
Yes.
and then watching when they freeze those crystals, how the crystals look differently than if I wrote love on this glass or I wrote hate on this
Yes,
glass.
indeed.
So I think, we have to understand that as water, 70% we are. All of a sudden, what is the words that you write on your body through this stuff
What do you
that comes out
think?
of your mouth?
What do you imagine?
What do you
What are your
think?
dreams?
So if we just catch the words that we use and change some of those words and consciously start working with energy medicine and energy healing,
Yes.
just with the words that we use. Throw some more words about gratitude out. Try to
Yes.
throw out words about love. Maybe love is too heavy for you. Just start catching, instead of saying no problem, change it around and saying that sounds good.
Yeah.
Little words we don't even know unconsciously. We have a litany of negative words that bring us into a negative vibration. That's energy healing at its highest.
It reminds me of the power of what we think.
Amen.
Because what you think creates your future reality. And we argue with that and say, no, it's not that way. It doesn't, but it is
it
that way.
unfolds almost in one-to-one relationship.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we start looking at how energy affects us. We're in that unified energy field.
Yeah.
And there's things that happen instantaneously. There are things that happen in quantum physics that are absolutely mind-boggling.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Like this whole life, is this the dream, or is the dream, the real thing?
And these are questions that the physicists in these think tanks are coming up with. People in these advanced research labs are coming up with these questions now. And so I think we are so fortunate to live in a time where science and spirituality have started to come together in our life.
Yeah.
It's like the dream is here. Right now we are so lucky to be alive, and we have so much access to information and inspiring people to get us into a place of coming back to our power. I think we have to as a
It's
world.
about trust, too. You begin to see the confirmation of the science and spirituality merging, and it gives me confidence that, this is real. And so I pay a lot of attention to my intuition and how I feel about something, or what I notice, or how something seems. I pay attention to now. It's not like I look at things and say, well, no, that's just my imagination. Where's the science behind it? I've actually lost a lot of confidence in science as a doctor.
Beautiful.
Because I don't think that that's what runs things so much. Just because I don't understand it doesn't mean that it isn't there.
Exactly.
What it requires is my trust and my willingness. And that's why I've incorporated things like Qigong into my own personal
and
practice.
photon stimulation,
We're
which
using light.
blows people away, that light can affect massive change in a person's body.
That seems-
light. And what is energy but light?
Well-
Photons are packets of energy.
Every single reaction that occurs, it's biochemical in the human, in anywhere, there's an emission and absorption of different frequencies of light, which is mind-boggling for a lot of people who are stuck in the paradigm of biochemistry. I know I use that in my practice now with the infrared light therapy, and we're starting to see things that are just stunning.
It's amazing.
Like to be able to turn around a diabetic with neuropathy, painful neuropathy, and they can't do anything, in 1 or 2 treatments or 3 treatments of 10 or 15 minutes.
Only with light.
Only with light.
And so to me, these are tangible evidence that
Exactly.
energy, maybe it's so hard to think about emitting chi, like in Qigong, we have traditions of emitting chi, and there's some wonderful things about that. But here, light, it's practical. Here's a machine that you can work with. And I think it's some of your energy, too, that's part of it, and your intention and your
Absolutely.
love. But the fact of the matter is where light becomes a carrier, just like water can become a carrier.
Exactly right. I've treated people with infrared light therapy and found at the end of the treatment we had a wonderful response. We use infrared imaging to measure the response that we get. We see all these changes to find out, Francesco, the machine was never turned on.
Ah, I love that.
So
Yeah.
it tells you about the effect of placebo
Sure.
and of intention.
The power of intention.
When I noticed that the first time, I went, wow, this is just a placebo effect. And I thought about it some more, and I thought, I really wanted this person to get better. And my intention was focused hard, and they did get better.
And you set a resonant energy.
Yes, indeed.
Energy healing. You set a resonant energy that somebody who was questioning harmonized with it, and you set up a sympathetic vibration.
Exactly
And-
right.
And this is what all the quantum physicists are talking about now, and this is what the ancient healers have always talked about.
So why don't we get with it, okay, and appreciate the major impact that energy has on our bodies, and to look at energy medicine as a healing tool, and to use placebo and use intention and use light and use electromagnetic fields and do look at the whole integral nature of how the universe works as an energy itself. Its time is here.
It has to be, and it takes a courage. It takes all of us to have courage to just try it.
It's different.
Try a little bit. Try a little something about changing your words. Try a little something about going out and going to somebody like yourself to get an experience with this.
Exactly.
Get a session or 2 or 3. Try something like Qigong. I mean, that's what I love about Qigong, is that it's such a simple exercise for people to start playing with their own energy. How many hundreds of times have I experienced people who said, I've never felt this. I've always heard people talk about it.
Yeah.
And what was the only difference? They came to a class.
Yeah.
They took a step. They had that courage to give it a try. The ones I love the most are when a wife brings the husband in, and there's the husband standing there like this. And
where's the science in this stuff?
It's so great you're coming here, because, well, my wife may be coming. And it's so cute. And at the end of the session, he's the one who's saying, I feel this. It's great. And what was the difference? He just, whatever reason, he came and gave himself the opportunity. And I've seen so many naysayers. Once they get over that hump and they give it a try, and it's usually when they're faced with a challenge.
Well,
but we're in the time right now. We are living in an amazing time where we can start putting this stuff to practical use.
Well, it's been around for thousands of years. I wonder why.
Yeah.
We get locked in this paradigm approach where if we don't have the science to explain it, we throw it out. That's got to stop. We've got to look inside to our hearts to realize that we have a tremendous energy there, and we're all part of a huge one energy field. And we can manifest through Qigong, through Tai Chi, through biochemistry, through biophysics. It's all related to one family of energies that are interchangeable, probably.
Well, we talk about the physical world, and as we peer deeper into the science of who we are,
exactly.
And you talk about string theory, or you hear all the quantum physicists, and
Right.
even if you're not into science, you hear so much about that an atom is this big thing, and there's only this much solid, and everything else is space.
Yes.
Well, what is that space? It's not empty space. It's filled with energy. We were trained that electrons went around the nucleus. The fact is, it's a field. It's an electron field. The whole space is filled with energy. There is no solid. As we go deeper into even what the solid part of the atom was, we find that the quarks, which were the elemental parts of the atom, are made up of things called colors. And all of a sudden we go deeper, and it's just energy.
Yeah.
So we are energy.
Yeah.
And yes, energy creates lots of bonds, energy bonds. They call them weak forces, but they're actually very solid. And that's what we have, the sense of a solid physical body.
Exactly.
We are energy. And I think when little kids can start learning that at school as part of common science,
Right.
we have the evolution that you're talking about.
Well, we live in a biochemical world today, and we think that that's the cat's meow and the final answer, and it's not. It's looking at the deeper bioenergetics. It's that energy of the different forms that we talked about that regulate things. And when we get that through our heads, and we start to accept it as you and I are, and many other people are starting to realize, we're going to live in a world where we're more interested in participating in a positive way. I think we'll be healthier because there won't be so much need for dysfunction, for dis-ease.
We'll look at it different. We change and reframe disease. And when we reframe it as an opportunity
Exactly.
to discover our full nature. And that sounds pretty grandiose. I've been in lots of pain, so it's not like I'm coming from a place of saying, oh, I've been healthy all my life. I've had times when I was told I'd never walk again. So I know what it's like to face that belief system that I will never do something again, and I'll be in a state of pain forever.
It was exactly the faith that you had in yourself that you would walk again that led to that happening. I think that what we think is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. And I think we're given opportunities. I know that was my opportunity to push myself to the wall, because I thought all these thoughts before, but I was a young guy and I was very cocky, and I didn't have the opportunity to put it to the test. So grateful to the universe that I could face that test, and every day I face some kind of a test.
We all do.
And see how much it's just words, or how much I'm living in my own full of what. So I like to really put it to the test. And living in a biochemical world, chemistry is energy.
Yeah.
What I learned in biochemistry is that it's all an energy reaction.
Right.
At some level, it's electrons connecting molecularly or even atomically.
Sure.
So we are in an energetic world, and we just have to change that paradigm to know that energy healing is really what's happening all the time, and that we have a big influence over that.
Well, this is the medicine of today, and it always has been, but it may be what we understand for the future of how we're going to practice healthcare.
Well, I'm happy we had a chance to talk about this, and I hope we have a
Indeed.
chance to talk about it more.
Thank
So,
you, Francesco. It's
thank
always
you.
good to be with you.
It's awesome, Len. Thank you.